So let's talk about the white collar exemptions, which is a set of three exemptions: the administrative, executive, and professional exemptions. They're the most common, exemptions that you see, and employee. One of these three exemptions are typically exempt from sections 3 through 12 of most of the wage orders in California, and that, practically speaking, that notably includes minimum wage, reporting time pay, time record requirements, whether you have to record the start and stop time of their shift every day, and the duty to provide meal breaks and rest periods. So to qualify, it's really important. Each of these three exemptions have to meet both a salary test and a duties test. So the exempt employee has to meet both tests to qualify as exempt. The salary test is the same for the three different exemptions. The duties test is where they depart. So we'll start with the similarities, and I'll turn it over to Anthony to talk about the money.
Great. So the salary test requires that the employee here in California earns a monthly salary equivalent of no less than 2 times the state minimum wage for full-time employment. I've got that standard set out on this slide. Now, it's a two-part test here in California. There's a salary level test and a salary basis test. So as Mike mentioned, there's a salary test and a duties test, but of this first test, the salary test, it goes subparts too. So we've got a two-part test that we need to meet. I'm going to talk about the salary level test first, because it's the easiest part of the test. It's black or white if the employer is paying the employee enough to meet the salary level test. And it basically requires, here in California, the employee has to be earning a monthly salary equivalent of no less than 2 times the state minimum wage for full-time employee. So again, as I mentioned, it's black or white. The employee meets this or not, and it's pretty easy to prove if the employee is getting paid or not, enough or not. So effective January 1st, 2023, the minimum annual salary threshold is $64,480 for all employers. And I've done the math here, and that comes out to $5,373.34 per month. And as a reminder, this salary level test is based on the state minimum wage. It's not based on the federal requirements, which are much lower on the federal minimum wage. And they're also not based on the local city and county minimum wage requirements here in California, which are much higher. So we're looking to the state minimum wage. So even if that state minimum wage, you're in a local city that's got a higher minimum wage, such as Los Angeles, you still look to the state minimum wage in determining this salary threshold to meet the salary level test of annual salary of $64,480 for exempt employees. So that's the first part of the test. And as I said, it's the easy part. You're paying that or you're not. It's very black or white. The second part of the test gets a little more gray. Generally, the salary basis test requires that an employee receives a preset salary to exceed that specific amount that I talked about in the prior slide. But on this basis test, it's not focused on how much the employee is being paid. It's on how they're being paid. Is it a salary, or is it more like a wage or a piece rate or something else, like a daily rate of pay? And the California courts or the California law requires that it's on a salary basis. And generally, the court in this Negri versus Koenig and Associates, the case I mentioned in 2003, looked at this issue where the employee challenged the way they're getting paid and said, I wasn't getting paid on a salary basis. And the court there said the salary is not defined in the labor code or the wage orders, but generally they look to a lot of different, the dictionary and how the term is normally used, and said that salary is generally understood to be a fixed rate of pay as distinguished from an hourly wage. Now, in this case, the employee was an insurance adjuster, getting paid something like $29 per claim. and or actually $29 per hour with no minimum guaranteed pay. And then they would just work and bill their employer per hour for the time they worked. When they worked more than 40 hours in a week, they still received only $29 per hour. They weren't getting overtime. Now, the court held that because defendant stipulated that it didn't pay the plaintiff a regular guaranteed salary and it was based on the hour, and if the employee worked fewer claims, he made less money. Therefore, plaintiff was not paid a predetermined amount that was not subject to reduction based on the quantity of work performed by the plaintiff. Therefore, the court held that since the plaintiff was not paid a salary, defendant did not prove that he qualifies as an administrative exempt employee under the wage orders and was owed overtime. Some key items here to remember: that the employee's pay may not be subject to a reduction because of the variations in the quantity or quality of work performed. So it's a set amount that they earn regardless of how much they work or how good they work. And also must be paid full salary for any work week that work is performed. For if they perform any work during the work week, they have to be paid the full salary during that work week. And again, employers can't make deductions for absences caused by the employer, where the employer's the result of the employee not being able to come in when the employee is ready, willing, and able to work.